He would promise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Find Genesis chapter 2. Huh? Genesis chapter 2, verse 7 describes all of us. Who would like to please read verse 7?
From dust of the ground, he breathed the breath of life into the man's nostrils, and the man became a living person.
Thank you very much. Now, when you read, when you hear this description of like our, how to say, primal nature, our basic form of existence, how do you relate? What kind of a relation do you feel when you look at yourself through this description? Yeah. Okay. Let's put it this way. Do you identify with this description? Sorry.
From dust I came, to dust I will return.
Okay. Yeah. How it ends, actually how it begins, that's how it ends. Yes. Yeah, okay. Humbling thought. Yeah. All right. What else kind of strikes you as your identity in this verse?
See also that we're part of nature.
Uh-huh.
And God then commanded us to go and take care of the garden where he brought up Adam. And sometimes that whenever we go to out by rivers, by mountains, we're out in the sand dunes, and we can take that moment to just be.
Okay. Okay. Oh, yeah. It's like we are not aliens to this planet. Quite the contrary, we belong to it. We come from it, and eventually we're gonna go back to it through that cycle of life that you just described. Okay. I really want you to think about right now of a basic definition of your basic identity. Of when you kind of strip down everything else, who you are in life, you end up being this. Living, breathing human being. Now, geez, this is loud. Okay. And actually, two girls are going to the end of the room to get some water or something like that. So, what else do you find over there striking in the context of the primal identity?
Well, you know, it's great when you were like what Laura was saying, or when you kept asking, the image that kept coming back to my mind was like the image of like when a baby comes into the world.
Uh-huh.
So like when they first come out, and because I've seen it, obviously I gave birth, but I wasn't really looking because there was like a sheet because I had a C-section, but I have the video because I was the video.
Uh-huh.
So seeing the video, the image I have is like of Rafa coming out and he's quiet because his umbilical cord is still connecting.
Uh-huh.
He's not breathing through his nose and his mouth.
Yeah.
He's just a little bit, right? And they cut the umbilical cord and then they kind of like
Slap.
Yeah, and also when they're like take something out and then they kind of stop him to, and you hear the, and then the cry, right? And it's just like when their lungs first breathe air. And it's just kind of like, oh my gosh, that's crazy, you know? It's like, hey, welcome to the world. And I'm like, what a shock that must be, but also how beautiful and powerful that is. So I was like, I just kept thinking about that. I was like, oh, and how much of like our beginning and even our ending is kind of surrounded around the concept of the breath.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. I like that. Yeah. And you remember, so the reason I'm bringing this up, so I'm trying to kind of recall some of the things we talked about this year. That's what that was kind of my goal for today, to have a little bit of a kind of, not necessarily a recap, but rather what I would like us to think about today is in this last year, actually not this year, we talked about many things. And for everyone, some things were more or less striking, depending on the topic. But do you remember when we were talking about breath? Vanity of vanities, everything is vanity. That was beginning of the year or so. Could be maybe out of the last year into the new year. I could probably see, but do you remember? Actually, how do you recall that concept of breath that we talked about? Like when. Okay. So, Solomon talks about this concept of vanity, where everything is vanity. And pretty much the downside of English translation is that the English translation kind of sounds like everything is useless, There's no point to anything. But that's the last thing that he's actually trying to say. He's saying like everything is breath. Like, you remember that? All you've got is this one moment. From the crowd, this might collapse, and there goes your next breath, But when you read our primal description over here, where our bodies come from the elements of this earth, and then our breath comes from our Creator, we are defined at the same time as being earthlings and divine, just because of that part of earth and part of God that gives us life, that keeps us going. When you think of your definition as belonging to this earth and at the same time being divine as well, what kind of thoughts does that drive? What kind of feelings does that, what kind of feelings do kick in, thinking about the fact like, geez, I have divine in me?
To be honest, it makes me feel a little bit guilty because it makes me think of times where I haven't been very kind to myself.
Okay.
Like the words that I would say or think about me, and it's like if I'm also, human, but then there's also divine in me, how could I speak such cruel things sometimes to myself? Like I wouldn't say that to somebody else, but I say it to
You
me.
say it to yourself,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's kind of like, be careful with that.
Okay, let's dwell a little bit on this. You guys are familiar with this concept of you would never talk to somebody else the way you talk to you, right? Unless you're like total jerk, But try to recall some of those moments when you were really mean to yourself, when you were really looking in the mirror and really saying some bad stuff. Now, do those moments come? You can't remember any of those.
I don't want to.
Oh.
It's down deep in my heart, Mary.
Okay. There's a reason we don't talk about this stuff. Huh? Hey. Okay. Let's not do that. I was like, okay. So for the reason I brought this up is like lately I've been doing like last 2 months I've been doing a lot of my personal digging. I dug out some crap from way back, from early childhood, and trying to but the reason why I bring this up is because, at least in my process, as I was going through this, I needed to do this in order to start really making decisions consciously. because a lot of things, a lot of templates, a lot of kind of reasonings that I was basing how I create my reality, I came to realize they're not mine at all. But as you said, they were dug in so deep, literally into my subconsciousness, because I picked some things up from my parents way back when I wasn't even close to being able to kind of process consciously what's happening. So I just adopted what a child intuitively feels that it's happening. And all of us, I mean, I'm not special. Literally all of us have the same thing. But the deeper you dig, the more you realize who you are. So that's why I asked you for a moment, don't go too far, but just kind of, yeah, sorry, yeah. But the reason I'm asking you to recall those moments is because what I would like you to really think about is, where do these bad words come from? Did they come from your inner being? Did they come from this definition over here that we just read? Or they were sourced from something that was from elsewhere? What is that elsewhere? That's. Go ahead.
I saw from school, like you're like, oh, you're so stupid for doing that, and then it's like that's in your head, like, oh, I am stupid, like.
Morning. Oh, hello. You interrupted Sean rudely in his monologue, but that's fine.
But it could be, I mean, not necessarily me, but in society, like family, friends, and people could just be joking at times too, but like you're trying to do something like, oh, why'd you do that? That was stupid of you to do that, or that was something, like something you're not expecting an answer to, or disregard your accomplishment or something. So that kind of.
So you could say that like one source of how we see ourselves, especially in a negative way, comes from uncritical accepting of certain statements. Whether they're true or false, you don't get into that. You just kind of embrace it, because very often in that period of early development, you don't have the mental capacity to now say, no, that's not stupid. Like some kids do. It all depends, again, also on the upbringing, on how you see authority, how you see peers, and so on. But essentially, some of these negative layers that we see in ourselves and that we tend to bash on come from uncritical accepting of stuff we hear. How many times did you uncritically accept something I said? Say it again?
You said John?
No, No, how many times did you uncritically accept something I said? Because you trust me as a pastor, and someone you've known for a really long time. You know, how many times in these studies of ours you can just accept it, yeah, okay, that makes sense, without really investing your own time to analyze. Yeah, we discuss things here, and that's why I insist on discussion, because I want you to process. I want you not to just take it. I want you to have a grasp of it. And how many times we disagreed?
100 times.
You counted? You have like...
100%. Well, because you challenge us, so we're home angry sometimes.
Oh, Lord!
But then in the end, we could see it once we. That's why it's like you studying into it, looking into it, and everything, doing your own research, talking to someone else about it. Versus like, and you're like, okay, I guess.
But okay, let's keep peeling this onion more. One layer is uncritical, accepting uncritically statements and just labeling them as truths or labeling them as lies, and then continuing with that kind of being in the background filter for every next thing that happens. Now, what else? What else could be a source of you looking in the mirror, seeing something bad, and then being bad to yourself for it?
Like other people that could have caused this?
Excuse me?
Other people that could have caused this?
Like, for example?
My parents? My dad specifically?
Okay. Okay, yeah, our parents tend to impart in us a lot of their truths that sometimes are they're like downright wrong, but very often they didn't know any better. Sometimes our parents lied to us, so we would calm down, but we don't know that, and then we embrace those ideas and so on. But let's talk about parents for a second. When you look at yourself, and all of you are mature enough to probably have enough introspection to do that. When you look at yourself, do you see your parents? Huh? Now, as we read this biblical description of us in the beginning, you know, there is this basic, magnificent, beautiful existence of you, where God takes the elements of this earth, he shapes you up into something in an amazing biological system, and then he breathes in divine in you, like the breath of God is within you. For as long as you have breath, that your breath is a sign that the breath of God is within you. So you're this magnificent work of art filled with divine spirit. And the next thing that happens is parents step in, and we'll take it from here. Bless you. Now, when you see your parents in you, give it a spin for a moment. Think of, come up with at least one good and one bad characteristic that you can say, this is definitely from my parents. Now, when you think about it, it didn't take much. I saw the nodding, like this didn't take much. All right, now, when you think about it, let's focus on the bad ones, because today I want us to talk about shedding. I want us to talk about who are you. Do you feel that the negative traits that you picked up from your parents is something that you should change? It's debatable, right? Why?
Something I'm accustomed to, or I'm not necessarily. I mean, as I thought about it, it's like, is that necessarily a negative connotation? But it's not necessarily hurting anyone else.
Okay, let's put it this way. Let's go a step back. So when you think about, when I told you, think about those two traits that you got from your parents. I just kind of labeled them immediately. One positive and one negative. And things popped to your head. Now, why did you label the positive positive? If you don't mind sharing actually what it is, it will kind of it would give it a little bit more of a kind of a substance to it. So
positive would be from my mom. She said, Mika, you are not a princess, you're an Amazon. And I was like, yes. It made me feel powerful.
So why do you label that as positive?
Because I like the idea that I'm not helpless,
Okay.
that I am strong, I am powerful, I am capable, and not that I don't need help from anyone else, but to also, like, I think Amazons, like, they live within their tribe as well, drawing power with each other, and I think that is really cool too.
Okay, all right, cool, thank you. Jenny?
Yeah, the positive, I thought about my mom too, like her desire to like self-improve and grow. I think I've gotten that from her, and I think I actually ended up getting into like counseling and mental health because of her, like that field, because of her maybe interest in it. I think that's a positive of like desire to grow in that way.
All right, now why did you label it as positive?
Probably because it benefits myself, and that was probably the first thing, because it benefits me.
Okay.
But then if I think about it a little more, it benefits others too. Like I've seen how her growth has benefited me, and then my growth is probably benefiting Daniel,
Okay. Cool. Okay. So no. This is cool. This is really this is. I feel that this is a really important part of understanding our positive and negative in that sense, because like in the context of Jesus teachings, sorry, in the context of Jesus teachings, what was the golden rule? Yeah, do unto others the way you want them to do it unto yourself. So Jesus even excludes the element of like it benefits me. You know, for Jesus, the idea is like something is positive if it's bringing a positive change to the world around you. Because as you're bringing positive change to the world around you, whether it's like a small cell like your family, or it's your community, or it's the whole world, it's good for you as well. You know, so that's why Jesus kind of, it's like an equation where he excludes this me in order for me to benefit even more. You know? Okay, let's talk for a moment about negative. What was the negative trait, if you don't mind sharing, that crossed your mind that you picked up from your parents?
Explosivity.
Explosivity.
Yeah. Yeah, like reaction is sometimes not very like not good.
So let's put it this way. Why did you label it as negative?
The reason I labeled it as negative is because I feel like in some situations, maybe the explosivity can be good, but in most situations, it's not, because it's just an immediate reaction that I take without critically thinking or slowing down enough to consider what's the appropriate, reaction within the setting.
Okay.
Sometimes it's just in whatever I feel, and I know that sometimes emotions can just explode and come out, and you didn't think like, oh, me reacting like this has an effect on this person, or even me. Like it stresses me out even more. My cortisol levels are rising. That's not good.
All right.
So that's why I labeled it negative.
So again, the concept of labeling it negative is, even though explosiveness can be very handy, depending on the situation, sometimes it's actually very helpful, to be explosive. Sometimes being mellow. I mean, how many times being mellow took you nowhere? So yeah, there needs to be a level of that in all of us, frankly, if we want to survive in this world. But that's not what it makes it negative. What it makes negative is, in your head, the concept is, it's hurting me, it's hurting others. So all of us inherited these things. We didn't inherit them. They were just kind of slapped onto us. Like that guy, that meme with that guy with that magic tape, like he just slaps that tape on it and he stops water in there. That's how it, you know what I'm talking about? No. Never mind. Yeah. No, yeah, so there's like a big jug of water, and there's like a hole like this, and the water is just, and he just takes this, he slams it, and it literally seals it. Like so, and the jug is all like, But the idea is, like these things, a lot of these things that we see in ourselves, positive or negative, are just slapped onto us. And we didn't really have a saying whether we want to take that or not. So this primal definition of who we are starts being kind of covered up with different identities, with different character traits that were given to us in the beginning by our parents, later on by the society, and so on, either for the purpose of, if you're going to survive in this world, you need to be explosive. That might be the idea of, your parents when they imparted like this idea in you that I should act like this, But the bottom line is that all of these things that you see that come from anyone else but yourself are not you. That's my point. So they maybe define you right now. But, like for example, if you don't mind taking me again as an example, Evelyn. So if you had a choice at some point early in your life, and you have your wits to understand it, to say, okay, here's the deal. So starting from tomorrow, you're going to be explosive. It's going to work out really good in some situations, but there will be quite a bit of situations where it's going to be kind of tremendously damaging. So the odds are that you're going to benefit from this, like, I don't know, 50-50, maybe 60-40, you know, but it's kind of like a character trait that we're going to upload into your brain right now. What would you do? Would you say, yeah, you bet?
Slow down a little bit. I'd be like, well, let me think about it.
Okay, think about it.
But
Think
knowing
about
that I've had this before, I never had it before. Because like me, like I've lived with this my entire life. So sometimes I'm like, oh, I wish I wasn't. But then other times I'm like, I could see how beneficial it is to be like, I act and I do, and you know. So sometimes it's like, oh.
So okay, so give it a thought. So would you, like, if you had the option to say, you know what, screw this, disable that explosiveness? No, no. Yeah.
That was second thought.
Now think about at least one trait of your character that came from the outside source. It doesn't have to be your parents. Maybe you picked it up in high school. Maybe you picked it up from your first boyfriend, girlfriend. Maybe whatever it is. But think about something that you would really wish you could just switch it off. Can you think about one thing that defines you right now that you wish you could have switched long ago so it wouldn't be part of who you are? I was giving it a lot more thought about this in the past 2 months, so I feel like this might be, go ahead.
Yeah, I've realized with my job, or it's like come out a lot, I have like this, I think kind of deep like self-doubt, and maybe a lot of people do, but
Okay.
like a doubt that in my ability to like perform specifically, even I think like it's come out mostly educationally.
Okay.
Like, and I think it started maybe like elementary, middle school, like where
Okay.
I was in a lot of like second speaker classes.
Oh, okay, okay.
You know, like
Yeah.
and I felt different because of that. And like, I think I internalized a lot of that. Of like, oh, I'm not smart. I can't read. I mean, I still struggle with reading and stuff. So like things like that I.
So what would you switch off? Tell me, what would you switch off?
Yeah, that doubt, that like not this, like the opposite of self-confidence. Sometimes like I
Okay.
second
guessing yourself.
second guess myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So, and you're pinpointing the origin to that from early education
I
kind
think
of
so,
period.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, this is $1 million question for all of you. Why don't you switch it off then? Huh? What did you say?
I'm actively working. Yeah. No, I am. I'm working on it with my supervisor. Like it comes, and I'm like simplifying it and it's that, and it comes out in different ways.
Okay.
But I actually am working on it because I've seen it become kind of like, I see it sometimes as a defective thing. Like it makes work harder in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Or it gets in the way of like something being easier for me. Like it feels like I don't know how to explain it, because I don't want to say it's not a disability, it's not a crutch. Like it's something I don't enjoy. Like I don't.
Okay.
Like it sucks that
It's a
happening,
part of you,
know?
that.
It's like,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Okay.
Like I don't enjoy any part of it. I don't know
Okay.
if that's like
All right. Get it.
simplified.
All right. Now, question. You immediately said therapy.
Yeah,
Why?
because that's how you self-reflect, and that's how you like bring things out
Okay.
that you weren't aware of, like you're doing.
Okay. All right.
That's why I said that.
All right. Now, what prevents us from simply switching it off? Like, screw it. I'm not going to be self-doubting anymore. I'm going to go out there today, and I'm going to be super confident. Why? Go ahead.
I would think that it's like practice, because like for me, one of my biggest things is I'm like very like overthinker a lot, and I think that roots in like lack of self-trust in
Okay.
decision making. But I think it's because like for a long time I've been acting in a specific way, that to now just switch off that way of acting that you've done for so many years is kind of like, it's hard because you revert back to that way of being. You know, it's like you have to be very conscious of, okay, wait, I'm not gonna be like that. So it's like you have to very actively, I don't want to say force yourself, but almost in a way you kind of are forcing yourself to really slow down and think, wait, I don't want to be like this anymore, so now I have to act in a new way. And it's like, I don't freaking have time right now to do that. You know, I gotta do this, and this, and this, and this.
Yeah. Go ahead, and then I'll reply to that.
Kind of trying to are too, but it's like, it may be not necessarily a negative type of personality or trait of yours, but it may have affected someone in a negative way, the way you acted or said something. So then it's like, are you in a step to change your life? Like, a lot of times it's like a self-reflecting time of your life where you're just like, oh, well, I hurt that person I care about in a negative, in a way that I don't want to do that anymore. So it's kind of like that withdrawal from yourself. You're like, okay, maybe I need to change this aspect of the way I act, or change it to a degree.
Okay, all right, okay, well, okay. So to kind of go back to this, when I said, why don't you just switch top? Why don't you just change? We have, so neuroplasticity talks a lot about that. So we have the ability to rewire our brain, but when something is wired for way too long, or for just a long period of time, it tends to stay there unless you consciously, action after an action, try to rewire it. And that's so cool, like the studies that they were doing, you know, they say like when you create a habit or a character trait or anything, your brain actually reshapes, like those little grooves and everything else, they actually reshape to kind of maintain that. And then when you try to break a habit and you succeed in it, that same place in the brain reshapes again to kind of release it. It's kind of crazy how things work, not just on a like internal level, but on a physiological as well. So seeing these traits of who you are, actually looking first at who you are is the first step. And then identifying the things that are not you inherently is the second step. And then the third step is the choice. Third step is the choice. Okay, who do I want to be? Do I want to be a reflection of, and God formed a man from dust of the ground and breathed into him nostrils, the breath of life, and man became a living creature? Do you wanna start from there consciously, yet again, or would you prefer to be a reflection of whatever your parents imparted in you and the society and so on? So who would you rather be? If you, who you choose to be?
Yeah, so not just the way that I have been, because that's what society, family, TV, whatever imparted on me, and I just went along with it. I don't want to be that.
That means a lot of work.
Oh, I've been working on it. It's not easy. It's very hard.
It's actually very difficult. What benefit do you see to kind of peel all of that down to the layer of simply being a living being? Divine biological mechanism. Do you see a benefit of stripping it down all the way to there? Excuse me? Like why, in the long run?
I'm seeing it as like being one with God in a sense, like you're reaching your full potential with God.
Okay.
But then like in a sense, like you reaching your full potential with God isn't necessarily accepted by society either.
Yeah.
Okay.
To where she's mentioned family, society, where it's like society expects you to be a certain way, but you have a certain way with your family as well. You have a certain way with your friends. You have a certain way with God. Each way isn't always necessarily going to match up. One or two pieces is always going to be missing. But with God, it's going to be whole, and then once there, you're perfect with Him.
Okay, you really jumped way ahead into what I wanted us to talk about at this point. We still didn't even touch the concept of a divine spark in you and what it makes you and how it defines you. But this was my final kind of point that I wanted to make at the end of this study. So let's just jump to it straight up then. You can never reach your full potential as long as you carry around anything else but the living being definition as you see it over here. And the reason why is twofold. First one is, once you reach that point of your awareness of yourself, where, okay, I know exactly where all of the things that create my reality come from, and I consciously choose to strip them down and get rid of them to simply be and exist as a living being, you start fresh. You start from scratch, not just on this horizontal, like society level. You start from scratch with yourself from within. Because then you can consciously pick and choose. Okay, this really didn't work out good for me. I'll have to reshape it. Again, explosivity. It worked out at some points, at some not, but now I have the opportunity to alter it so it actually works much more in my benefit. You know? Yeah, okay, you have motivation. Yeah.
Deal with it, you know?
All of the things that we're talking about right now, you're the culprit in his life of that. Like that slapping, you know? You know? But seriously, you know, whether good or the bad, it's happening in any time you interact, because on his level of cognitive is still limited, so he needs to perceive things on the level of intuitive. And intuitive simply takes, you know? Now, another aspect of why I challenge you to dig deep, to dig all of that crap out and sort it out and throw it out and keep what is good, is because one thing that you said is amazing. Until you're fully stripped of all of these elements, the actual potential that God has in you cannot be accomplished. Because, let's now go to that. When the Bible says that there is a divine spirit inside of you, what does that mean to you? How does that strike you? What does that, okay, either of those questions. What does it mean to you? How does it strike you? How does it practically apply in your life? The thought of, geez, there is a breath of God, of divine in me.
Pull away from everything that separates you from God, all those bad habits, all those, everything that is against God. And it's driven to serve God and
Okay.
be him, like be with him. Like you're planning a trip. You pack your bags, you pack everything, you sort everything out. That's pretty much what we're doing. We're packing our bags, but we're bringing the necessary things with us to prepare for heaven. Versus, oh, I might use this, I may not. But with God, it's like you have your basic essentials, and then you have everything else. And that, like, I don't need to bring a snowboard with me to go to the beach. So stuff like that. Like, you pack the necessary things and get rid of the rest.
Okay. All right. So awareness that there is a breath of God inside you, that there is divine inside of you, makes you rethink what exactly priorities in your life. Okay. Purpose, goals. Okay. All right. Yeah. What about the rest of you? How do you guys feel about it?
Makes me think of like, okay, so now every breath that I take is a reminder of his presence, of his gift of life. Like, I can't escape him. Like, he's always gonna be there. And I think like something beautiful that I heard, and I'm probably gonna butcher this, but I heard this, I think it was a preacher, he was talking about the name Yahweh. And he says, like, when you say the
Breathe
name,
in and breathe out.
yeah, but as you say Yahweh, you're literally not even closing your mouth, and you're kind of breathing it. So he's saying it's like when a baby gives its first breath, he's basically saying God's name, Yahweh. And he was, saying it was very dramatic, very beautiful. I wish we could play it for everyone. And then when you take your last breath, it's the breath of life going back, and the last thing you say before you leave this earth is God's name.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of very beautiful, and also it makes you feel so small, but yet so taken care of.
Significant.
Yes, yeah, it's beautiful.
We kept being shoved by the society and the education that we are so insignificant. A speck of dust in this vast universe that we live in. But you see how awareness of divine in you changes the perspective. If you think of your potential, like for example, let's talk about your spiritual experience and how it has been developing, let's say, in the past couple of years, where you used to be a couple of years back and where are you right now spiritually. Are you satisfied with how the things are going in your spiritual life? Do you feel, can you say like, yeah, it's been going good. Yeah, things are really growing and developing and I'm discovering new spiritual realms and I enjoy it. Can you say that? Okay, all right. Like what?
So they'll have, as an example, last month or two, I had a spiritual high where I was moving forward, things were really incredible. And then I stopped either reading or praying as much, and then it went back down. And I was like, I know better. So, and then I'm just like, I need to get back. So it's just like that's just ebbs and flows. I'm not as critical as to myself as I used to be about it because I understand that God is still with me. God is never going to leave me, and God sees me through this situation. And He knows exactly what next to do to help me on my journey with Him.
So what do you think causes the waves, the ups and downs? Actually, what causes the downs? You say like,
Quality time with Him.
okay.
That really comes down to it.
So it's attention.
Just attention to
Pretty
me,
much
yeah.
the moment the attention is moved away from the divine in you and shifted to the whatever, human, horizontal in you, the spiritual aspect of your life starts kind of withering. Okay, all right. How about the rest of you?
She brought it up to me a long time ago, because I always like, oh, I wish I was at that point in my spirit, like I was at this point in my spiritual life as I used to be. She's like, you gotta stop thinking of like that, getting back to that level. You're at a different level now. So having that knowledge and understanding, like God's not leaving you, you're gonna leave Him. But then it's like having those ebbs and flows and whatever. And it's just having that time. It's built like a relationship. I used to think quality time, we could sit next to each other and watch a movie. That's not a quality time. It's like I know she's there, but that's not, you're not speaking to each other.
Yeah.
So it's like that with God, like, yeah, He's there with me, but I'm not getting to know Him and I'm not letting Him get to know me.
All right. So thank you very much. You guys pretty much stated the obvious, and that all of us know. And but I appreciate it because it's something that will take us to the next step. Think of yourself right now as a basic definition that we just read from the Bible, that primal definition of who you are. What kind of spiritual potential do you see in yourself when everything else is stripped down? Can you perceive the spiritual potential that you could have and your spiritual experience that you could be into if everything was stripped down? Like if all other points of attention were not removed, but let's say set aside. How do you imagine yourself? Can you see yourself? And can you see your most coveted spiritual self? Do you have that daydream in your head? Maybe it's just me, I'm a pastor. I don't know. But I think about that a lot. Like, where do I really want to be in many areas of life? But for me, spiritual plays the biggest role because I've learned through my life that once spiritual is set, everything else just comes in place without even much of an effort. So, can you imagine like your best spiritual self? How would that person look like? Do you have a?
I think for me, like when I think of that image, I think I see like a Neverland that, like let's say something really hard in life is happening, like a season like that, and I know like if I was stripped of all the other stuff and had a really strong spiritual connection with my God, I know that even in a really rough season, I would be like unshakable. Like I would be good. I would be at peace. Even if everything is going crazy, I could just see an Everlyn like at peace and calm and not explosive and not super emotional. Just like, okay, we're gonna do this. But,
Okay, cool.
I was thinking about, I don't know who talked about this man, but it was here at church, and we're talking about this man who was passing away. But even in him being in the hospital, he was still like talking to people about like God and bringing them closer to God, and like just like people were bringing other people into his room, and then they would talk about God.
That's a story of my father-in-law.
Yeah.
Was
It's like
there
a-
other
I was like, yeah.
He is not terminal, but yeah, he is going through leukemia treatments, and it can turn south anytime. But yes, that was that story. Yeah.
I was like, that is such a beautiful soul. I found out like him comes up to mind, and then there's this lady who left her life here in the States, moved over to Kenya, and started an orphanage over there. And because of TikTok dances and social media, she's been able to get funding for the kids over there. And because awareness was brought to the area, then she's able to really do more and help more. And now to the point that all these organizations are doing everything, they're pouring themselves at this location, and all because of her selfless, brave, faithful act. She moved everything that she knew over there to help these kids out. And I was like, that was one person bringing awareness to this one area, and there's still so much. And I'm like, that's wild. Like that could be me, that could be my husband, that could be our church, that could be so many things. And I was like, but why am I so stuck? And so I'm like, definitely, like everyone's talking about going through like digging through their emotional traumas and really digging deep and down. I'm kind of like, okay, this is actually might be the reason why that I've got these like really core beliefs that I need to break down, like we were talking about, so that I can move forward.
Thank you. Well, the next question that was on my mind is, when you look at your ideal spiritual self, what stands in the way of you being that ideal spiritual self? And pretty much very often we don't really have the answer. Very often we don't know, because the problems are dug in so deep, very often into our subconscious, something that we picked up before we were even able to pick up anything consciously, you know. But the solution in itself is there. So when you guys think about your ideal spiritual selves and the sense of unattainability of it, when you say, why am I so stuck of not being the spiritual that I'm supposed to be, where do you see a solution? So you can't do any more of the same old. So I'm going to read the Bible more, I'm going to pray more, I'm going to spend more time, and so on. Obviously, that can take you to a certain level of spirituality, which also can be very deep and releasing and liberating and so on. But what else do you need to do?
sorry, I missed it because I was in the bathroom.
Yeah, you missed.
Yeah,
You missed
my
the.
bad.
But the idea is this: so you see your spiritual self, your ideal spiritual self, who you can really be in with God and in service to this world through this divine purpose. But it's somehow so elusive. You can't never catch up to this. And a usual conventional thing is, well, I'm going to just pray more, I'm going to read Bible more, I'm going to try to stay more connected to God. And what I was saying is, yes, that is one part of the equation that can take you quite far out, but that is not going to make you unstuck from reaching out.
What I just had was, it's funny because it happened in the bathroom, so maybe God was telling me something. But like the comment I said earlier, which was like, oh, my spiritual ultimate self would be this person that, like, you know, when all this hard season happens, I'd be like chill, like level, right? But then in the bathroom, I had this thought come, and I was like, oh, duh, okay. So I'm thinking, no, maybe it's not so much that I wouldn't have my reactions or I wouldn't have the emotional buildup, because at the end of the day, I'm still human. That's why I'm here on earth. So maybe it's coming to the acceptance that, you know what, I am still human. That is my identity here. But at the same time, I have a divine identity, a divine helper that I can reach to, even in my humanness.
Humanity.
Yeah, my humanity will
Humanness,
never leave me, because that's why I'm here. When I go to heaven, it's going to be different. I'm going to be brand new. I'm no longer going to be human, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I kind of think that it's like accepting the fact that, you know what, okay, I'm never going to be perfect. I'm never going to be 100% divine, because this is my identity here on earth. But I do have a divine Father that I can reach up to and ask for help. And so he will provide the things that I need. Because I think I've thought about a lot of like the prophets in the Bible, and they're very important figures in the Bible, and they still had moments of doubt, moments of fear, moments of sadness, moments of this. And it's like, oh, they're just like me too. But they had this amazing spiritual connection to God and were able to do all these amazing things. So then it's like, okay, maybe I can have that too, but remembering that it's not me, it's him that's doing that in me.
Find Jeremiah chapter 1. Let's read this verse, and let's wrap our story around this, because I think that Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5. I think this is a really good start for rethinking your primal identity. Who would be so kind to read? Please.
Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you, and before you were born, I consecrated you. I appointed you a prophet to the nations.
Thank you very much. Now, over here, we see a deepening of this spiritual identity, let's call it that way, or divine identity, or whatever it is. But there is a very peculiar deepening over here that God talks about when he talks to Jeremiah. Now, what was so special about him? He was, okay, we know he wrote the book. We know he lived in like turbulent times of political, in every sense that was time. He lived in the times when the people of God were taken to, they lost their freedom, they lost their country, they ended up in Babylonian exile. So, and he was the one who was pretty much in charge of keep telling the people, guys, God wants you in this exile. God is taking you there. This is God. The Babylonians are just the hand of God, where God is trying to save you from much deeper loss. Because you got lost in your political aspirations. You got lost in your national aspirations. And in all of these things, you completely forgot your divine identity as a nation, that you're the people of God that is supposed to bring the Messiah. And God was like, you know what, I gotta get this, all of this pride out of them. So off you go to Babylon. And Jeremiah was the most hated prophet. In the Old Testament, you'll see a lot of bashing that he was receiving. The Lamentations written in the Bible are written by Jeremiah. His nickname is the crying prophet. You know? And then on top of it, probably the most ironical and sad thing about it, he was most likely a teenager when God called him. He was a kid trying to tell the whole nation, you know, send this message. So he had a freaking rough life. Like, from many perspectives, like horizontal perspectives, his life sucked. I think in Talmud it says he was eventually killed by his people. They shoved him in a what's called in a log, in a hollow log, and they sawed the log in half. Okay. He's no, but seriously, you know, he had a freaking rough life, you know. And then and you see like later on in the Babylonian exile, you see prophet Daniel reading books of Jeremiah. And he is just appalled when he realizes how bad God had to be, bad, quote unquote, to his people. And he's just appalled and he's freaking out when he sees Jeremiah's numbers, when Jeremiah talks about numbers like, how long is this slavery supposed to last? Wow. You know? But going back to Jeremiah himself, this is Jeremiah's beginning that we just read. And he says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Jeremiah's identity existed not before he was born, even before he was conceived. His identity already existed. But there is one more amazing thing that God did for Jeremiah before he was born. Before that.
Consecrated.
Consecrated. What does it mean to be consecrated?
Is it to be set apart?
To be set apart, okay. What else? How do you understand the word consecrated? Do we need a Google to define to read the
Yeah,
definition?
hey Siri.
I see, yeah. What does it mean to consecrate? To be set.
Happens just to get. I thought it was like an appointing of something.
Yeah, like a
Exactly.
special.
Yeah. So before his life even began, he was set apart. He was appointed to be the prophet. But most of all, the idea of consecration is, now this is your purpose. And God gives him his divine purpose from the get-go. He was lucky that God told him this. Just imagine if God could tell you, hey, before you were even conceived, there's a saying in Serbian, like, before you were even a dirty thought in minds of your parents. God already knew you. And he already set plans for you. He already set you apart. And I am really starting to believe a lot that people who are investing their lives into connecting and staying connected to God and deepening this divine connection, that we really are set apart from the get-go. Because I run into so many people in this world, young and old, who have, not that they have no interest in it, but they have absolutely no concept or idea of the spiritual connection being significant and prominent thing in life. And I talk to people about this all the time. Some people are like, it just goes over their heads, and they have no interest to even think about it. You know, all that's on their mind is like, get paid and get laid, literally. I heard that somewhere. I don't know where, but it really defines a whole lifespans of millions of people. And you are not those people. You might be those people on a certain level of your existence. Actually, all of us are, let's be honest. All of us are those people on a certain level of our existence. But that is not the prominent level of existence that we live in. You guys, God knew you before you were conceived, and before you were born, He consecrated you. That's why you are here right now. What your job is to figure out how to dig to the depth of this consecration and get all of the things that are in your way so this consecration can bloom to its fullness. Then you will be who you already are. Does that sentence make sense? Yeah. Because you already are this person. From the very get-go, from the very beginning, you are the living being with the breath of God within you. You already are known by God. You already are consecrated by God for a purpose. This is all of the things that already are, but it's usually piled up with a crap load of things that we picked up on the way. And then that just smothers the real life that you're meant to live. And very often we live this half-life knowing that we could do more, knowing that there is more, having that inherent sense of there is more to my life, but never pursuing it because you're dealing with the surface stuff or maybe a little bit of a subsurface stuff. What I really want to challenge you guys. You know, the deeper you dig, the more painful it's going to be. And the deeper you dig, the more radical changes you're going to start making in your lives. And the deeper you understand the sole purpose of all of the failures in your life and start shedding off those failures and trying to rebuild them into successes, a lot of things change. Who you are right now, you decide to dig in deeper, you're not going to be that person in a month. You're not, in a year, you're not going to recognize that person. But I'm challenging you to do that, to really, really discover who you are. Because only when you do that, you can really, fully live. The risk is everything's going to change. If you want to maintain what you're building right now, you may be super successful, but you will always be your best mediocre self. Because of all of these layers that are just burdening you from really blossoming and being what God intended you to be. So, that's my challenge. Yeah. Figure it out. It's so worth it. It's going to hurt on the way a lot. But the process is going to liberate you to completely enjoy every single breath that you take. Every single one. Any questions? Anything to add? Okay, let's take the time then for one more prayer of presence. Try not to think about what we were talking about. Try to just let the thoughts kind of go through. Okay. These guys are moving up there. I'm going to set it to 1 minute. Dear Father, we know that you knew us from before the beginning. And we know that you set us apart and you have an amazing plan. And if that plan comes to fruition, oh, this world is going to be different, and every single moment of our lives is going to be filled with peace and joy, no matter what we are going through. So right now, I ask you for your Spirit to challenge us all, to dig deeper, to shed off everything that is not ours, to peel those layers deep, to dig into our subconsciousness, to find help to do this, so we can really become fully present, fully knowing, and fully living a life that will be giving you glory and that will be a blessing to everyone around us. Amen. Thank you, guys.